All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jennifer Slattery with the League of Cities and Towns, and I'd like to welcome you to another Workshop Wednesday. Today, we are joined by Brad Shear of the Potter League, who's going to talk with us a little bit about keeping our pets safe and about the spay and neuter funds through our municipalities. And we're joined by our colleague Toonie Shartner as well, who's on the board of the Potter League. I'll let you folks introduce yourselves, and we'll have a little presentation and do Q&A at the end. Brad, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Toonie. So I have a presentation. Toonie, did you want to introduce yourself quick before I start?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Jen, for hosting us. Very passionate about this work, and Brad will explain more of, what we do at the Potter League. And I really think the League and all the cities and towns in Rhode Island are, getting us more connected is really important. So I appreciate the time.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm going to share my screen and introduce myself as part of this. It's in this presentation here, hopefully, if I can get it to work. Whoops.
If you just hit slideshow at the top, that should
Yeah.
do it for you. There we go.
All right. So I'm Brad Shear with the Potter League for Animals. Talk a little bit about me. Those are two of my cats. And so I've been working in this animal well-being space for 30 years at multiple different shelters. At one point, I ran a small animal control department, 4-officer department in a small city in Colorado. And so I've been a cruelty investigator and a animal control officer. But most throughout, except for 1 year of that 30 years, I was running shelters that either were municipal shelters or had contracts to be municipal shelters, as we do here at the Potter League. So that's sort of my background. A little bit about the Potter League. We are wrapping up our 95th year, founded in 1929 in Newport. Opened the first physical building on Harrington Street in 1931 and moved to Middletown, where we are now, in the late 70s, and built our current facility in 2008. Which I'll show you a couple pictures of in a minute. In 2019, we acquired the Rhode Island Community Spay and Neuter Clinic in Warwick. It's still in that same location. It's now called the Potter League Spay and Neuter Clinic. Again, I'll talk about that a little more in a few minutes. And in 2020, we acquired the Pets in Need Veterinary Clinic in Riverside. And again, I will talk about that in a little bit. But so this is just a list of all my contact information, which I'll show you again at the end if anyone wants to get in touch with me. But again, a list of a bunch of different programs that we have. I'm going to dig into some of them in a little more detail as I talk to you today. A few that I won't get too much into later. Our humane education program. We go into schools throughout the state and host kids groups like Scouts and other groups. And our pet loss support group, which is open to anyone in the state to come if someone has lost a pet. I believe the only one other that I'm aware of is at Ocean State that meets regularly, but we have a social worker who runs that group who will also talk to people on the phone. A lot of the other things here I'm going to at least touch on a little bit throughout my talk. So these are where our physical locations are. The one towards the bottom on the Aquidneck Island is our headquarters, our animal care center. And you'll see the Potter League Spay and Neuter Clinic in Warwick, and the pink one that doesn't have a label is the Pets in Need Clinic in Riverside. So you can see we have physical locations throughout the state, each serving slightly different functions, but each an access point for people if you need some assistance or want to plug into any of our programs. So the Animal Care Center in Middletown, this is right next to the airport on Aquidneck Island. It was the first LEED Gold certified building in the state of Rhode Island and serves several functions. It's where our food pantry is run out of. It's where our training center is. I'm going to show you a couple things within there. So one of the functions we serve, which we have served for almost our entire 95 years, is to be a municipal shelter, first just for Newport, but eventually for all 3 municipalities on the island, and just recently for Tiverton as well. So for those municipalities, we serve all the functions that your municipal shelter serves if you either have your own or contract with them. The most fundamentally, the holding of stray animals. So we take the strays from those 4 municipalities and house them for their required stray period. We handle vicious dogs for them if they pick up a dog, the rabies quarantine for those animals. One of the most challenging issues I think a lot of us have is housing animals from cruelty seizures, partially because sometimes the holding periods for them is very long, and sometimes the numbers are high in terms of the numbers of animals being seized in some of those cases, and of course help with abandonment. And I think the state law in Rhode Island is a little odd because there are different laws that require municipalities to handle different things. It's not very well consolidated. So for example, the state really pushes the requirement to handle rabies issues down to the municipalities. So we do have to have the ability on a municipal level to seize an animal that's bitten someone and house them for their 10-day quarantine, no matter dogs, cats, and ferrets, at least, no matter what that species is, and no matter what their behavior is. I mean, we were just contacted by a town who felt like their facility was not appropriate to house, one that we don't contract with, was not appropriate to house a specific dog that they had to quarantine for rabies, and asked us to help them. So I think those sorts of things we need to consider when thinking about our housing and responsibilities that our municipalities have. But those responsibilities aren't very well consolidated within state law to make that clear. There's no list you can go to when you say, here's what you need in an animal shelter, your animal shelter to do. But those are all the things we do for those municipalities. And I think this consolidated approach has been healthy for our county, especially for Aquidneck Island, to reduce costs of sheltering and give the folks here a single place to go if they're lost astray. Because if each town had their own shelter, a dog could cross an invisible line and end up in a different place. So I think it's really healthy for us to be able to consolidate those services. This is what it looks like inside our facility. There are some different housing, but dogs on the left and right and cats in the middle. Volunteer with a cat. And there's some smaller kenneling, but generally this is sort of what the housing looks like. Not everybody's housing is going to look like this, and doesn't necessarily have to. The state has some minimal requirements for housing of animals that I'm sure you all comply with because the state makes you. And they inspect you, and we're inspected just like and have to meet the same standards as any municipal shelter. So hopefully, possibly helpful to you is also our training center. So within that facility is our behavior and training center, which might not be easy for all of you to get to because we're in Middletown, but what you can access easily is our behavior helpline. So if you go to our website, and you'll see that as one of our services, you can either call or email our trainers. They can help with both dogs and cats. So if you have somebody who you encounter anywhere in the state, we don't screen people by location. Anybody can contact us. And you might have something like a neighbor dispute or a chronic problem with an animal that could be solved with a dog trainer. So this service our behavior helpline is free to anyone who calls. Mostly these days, people are contacting us by email, but anybody can contact us and we'll try to help them out. Can't really deal with things like aggression by phone or email, but training issues we can certainly try to help with for free. So if you think if you're thinking to yourself, oh, if this person just could talk to a dog trainer, I wouldn't have to do some sort of enforcement action for them, then that might be something that's helpful for you. The other function that some of us have in the state is we're in the disaster response plan for DEM. So RISEP stands for Rhode Island State Emergency Pet Shelter. The Potter League is one of 5 shelters. Some of you might be one of these shelters that are responsible or have agreed with the state to take animals if there's a disaster declaration. So it's in section 6-8 of DEM's emergency response plan. Will tell you, list these shelters and also tell you what their responsibilities are. So the idea is humans go to a human shelter or a hotel in some cases, and the animals will go to one of these 5 places. So likely the one that is closest to you is the one that they will direct people to. If you want your shelter to be a RICEP, I would contact the state veterinarian. Especially we have a couple newer shelters in the state that would qualify. I think the 2 things they did to determine which shelters they were going to ask were, one, how new those shelters were and physically capable of withstanding an event, say a storm event, and also just trying to distribute them throughout the state. So if you want one closer to you, you could contact the state veterinarian. I know that there's a couple newer shelters that might be good locations for that. Our shelter is the only RICEP that has actually been activated in a disaster. So a few years ago when the gas service went out in much of Newport and people were without heat, we were activated by the state. We took in about 100 animals just over 100 animals during that month-long period. And you can see we took in a variety: birds, ferrets, cats, dogs. That bird had to go into a secluded place because he cursed at everyone who walked by him, which wasn't a nice thing for the guests who are coming in. And you can see on the right there, if you sign up to be a RICEP, the state provides you with these lovely cots that you can sleep on. We did stay open for 72 hours, the first 72 hours of that event. And then for the rest of the month, we're open for 12 hours because the hotels that a lot of people were staying at were pet friendly, but would not allow pets to stay there if the people weren't there at the same time. So people were coming to us, dropping off their pets before work, and then coming back after work to pick them up. So we had to stay open longer hours than normal in order to accommodate those folks. And if you do become a RICEP, I think they'll talk to you about this, but we tracked every additional expense that we took on because of the response, and were eventually reimbursed by, in this case, partially National Grid. If there's a FEMA declaration, it would probably be a FEMA reimbursement, but we had a lot of overtime in this incident that we were made whole, mostly by National Grid. So, one of the things that we've done in recent years that has been the biggest change for us in terms of our approach to the community is add this position of our community navigator. So this is a list of programs and functions that our community navigator does. He's essentially a social worker who focuses on helping people keep their pets. And I think that for a lot of you, if you have an animal control officer, you could probably not do everything that our community navigator does, but could think about this as an approach to people in the community, as we see a lot of departments shift from sort of an enforcement first approach to how can we help people and keep families together and offer supports. That's really what we're trying to do. So I'm going to talk about the first 4 programs, and well, 3 of them. The veterinary assistance program, we call the CARE program, is financial support for people in Newport County to go see the veterinarian. So if you're in Newport County, you need to see a vet, you can call us and we can help subsidize those vet visits. We don't do cash subsidies in the rest of the state, but we do offer the Pets in Need Clinic. We also have found tremendous help by partnering with human service agencies. So the community navigators are connection to human service agencies, and whether it's homeless shelters or food pantries, you'll see how we're partnering with some of them and how we connect with people and sort of head off problems before they start. So I'm going to walk through some of these programs. Our Pet Safe program, really anybody with a facility could do to some extent. We house pets for people who are in temporary crises. So typically they are people who are fleeing domestic violence, experiencing homelessness, hospitalized. And sometimes we had some people recently who had a fire in their home. We had someone recently who had a issue with a gas leak, and so we had 9 cats from that house for a short period of time. But essentially, I think there was a time when animals in those situations would end up getting surrendered to a shelter, and the people would never see them again in order to get services, or they would not seek services because they didn't want to give up their pets. So we hear all the time. We're actually working with a guy now trying to get him into a system where he's living in a van with his dog, and we're trying to help him. We supply him with food, but we're trying to get him to leave his dog so he can get into a system that'll eventually get him into a house. He's not quite there yet. But even just people being hospitalized, there was a study in Michigan recently that 14% of pet owners left hospitals against medical advice because they had a pet at home to take care of. So they're actually risking their own health in order to go home and take care of their pets. We see frequently with domestic violence that people will stay with an abuser because they don't want to leave their pet behind, because the pet's sometimes also being abused or being threatened. They want to be able to take their pet with them, but they stay. So if they have this outlet, it can be life-saving, literally, for them. So some of those stay longer. Some of those animals we put into foster care if we know they're going to be with us for a long time. But it's a great program. Then if it's something you want to offer to your residents, we can certainly talk to you about how ours works. And if you have somebody who needs that help, we just took a couple cats from Pawtucket there was I think there was an apartment fire there recently. And that's my dog, by the way, not a dog that was in the program. One of the other programs that our community navigator runs is our pet food pantry. That picture is actually at our Pets in Need clinic. There's a pantry there. At Pets in Need, because it's a veterinary clinic, we can also offer prescription food. But you can see they're just shelves there. Anybody can come if they need food, take some food, take the food that they need. We also partner with the Martin Luther King Center. The Martin Luther King Center here on Aquidneck Island has a mobile pantry. We supply food to their brick and mortar pantry. When their mobile pantry goes out, mostly to subsidize housing around the island, we will park our van near their van and distribute pet food while they're distributing human food to folks. So these are the sites around the state, the food pantries that we are distributing pet food to. If anyone wants a list, if you see something that looks like it's close to you, or you want to get one that's closer to you, you can let us know, and we might have somebody we can partner with, or give you the addresses of these folks. So there's a mix here of sites. There's our site, our shelter here on Aquidneck Island, and the Pets in Need clinic are both on this map. And there are some pantries here that we always have pet food. Some of them might be once a month. They'll have a pet food day, so they'll let their clients know, the third Thursday, I think some of them are, we're going to have pet food. We'll drop off that food on Wednesday evening usually, and Thursday morning they'll open up, and folks know that that's the day that they can get their pet food. And we're happy to have that kind of relationship with more. But we gave away 55,000 pounds of pet food last year through this avenue. And I think that there are other places to get food around the state that might have a requirement that you're on public assistance or something else. We just give it to the food pantries, and whoever goes to food pantries can take food. And most of the pantries are sort of no questions asked. If you're showing up at a food pantry, you need help, they assume you really need help, and they give you the food, and we will supply them with pet food. A lot of the pantries need us to repackage that food into smaller bags. So we'll repackage them into gallon Ziploc bags. They'll have the ingredients and what kind of food it is in that bag. But we're happy to give out bigger, a 50-pound bag of dog food if that's what people need. And we've been talking to Child and Family as well, possibly about adding them. And sometimes we'll have sort of a one-day drive-through pantry at different places. But again, if you're seeing somebody who needs help, maybe they're not feeding their pet appropriate food, and this is going to become a cruelty case if they don't get the food they need, and really it's a financial barrier that's stopping them, then we're happy to help with that. The other thing we've heard from the food pantries is that people were taking human food and sharing it with their pets. So they weren't getting their own food enough. So somebody gets a can of tuna and they're sharing it with their cat. So this way, the animals are getting the food they need, the people are getting the food they need. It's sort of a win-win across both. And then we do vaccine clinics around the state. Most of our wellness clinics or vaccine clinics we're doing in public housing community rooms. We just did one at our Pets in Need clinic. So our Pets in Need clinic is mostly sort of appointment based, but we do occasionally do vaccine clinics there. I think it was 110 animals we saw there a couple of weeks ago. But often at the community room at a public housing complex is a good place for us to be. Our people just line up, our vet gives them vaccines, and if they want them, a microchip. And this is a good way. I know a lot of communities have rabies clinics that partner with the State Veterinary Association. I still encourage you to do that. We also provide the distemper vaccines and microchips. And if you have a place in your community you think would benefit from that, we've done it. We've done it in Warwick Public Housing as well. And I can show you what they look like. So this is actually a Crossroads Outreach Center, at least last year or maybe 2 years ago now. So folks just line up on the street. You can see our vet there doing a vaccine in the lower left-hand corner, and our community navigator was there talking to people, asking if they needed access to other services, do they need food. So we'll have tables set up with food and supplies. And if we find an issue at that clinic, so we're not set up to do treatment or more detailed diagnosis at these clinics, but we can refer people to the Pets in Need clinic. Again, the Newport County folks we have the subsidies for, but we can refer people to Pets in Need, and we also encourage people. We can often sign you up right there for spay and neuter if that's something you want, but it's not a requirement. But you can see we don't need anything fancy. We've set up a folding table, a couple of folding tables, and have a place to do paperwork, and we're good to go. So again, the Pets in Need clinic is our full service veterinary clinic in Riverside. We pretty much do everything there your local vet would do, but our focus is on people who receive public assistance and sort of that next level of income above that. There's x-ray, there's blood diagnostics, there's the only thing they don't do that your clinic would do is spay and neuter, because we refer all those spay and neuter surgeries to our clinic in Warwick. But if you run into somebody who can't afford vet care, again, what we're trying to do in terms of our talking to municipalities, trying to help with, is make sure that something like a simple veterinary visit could avoid a cruelty case and you seizing an animal and have to go through a court case. If we can get them in and have them see a vet, then we can avoid all that, and makes it easier for everyone. And finally, our spay and neuter clinic. So our clinic in Warwick is the largest provider of spay and neuter services in the state. We spay or neuter about 6,500 dogs and cats every year, and we do it at a low cost. So we have a regular cost, and if people need a lower cost than that, they can contact us, and we have a couple grants that will subsidize it further. But I do want to make sure everyone understands your municipal spay and neuter funds as well. So I'm going to talk about that just a little bit. In 2006, the state passed a permit program for cats. So a lot of people on here probably hopefully know, that you're required to spay or neuter your cat in the state of Rhode Island unless you have a permit, essentially a breeder's permit, to keep your cat unaltered. I don't know how often or how easy it is to enforce that, but that's the requirement. Now, within that cat permit program, not sure why it ended up there, but a requirement was created to add a $1 surcharge to every dog license sold in the state of Rhode Island to create a municipal spay neuter fund. So if everybody should be selling dog licenses. I'll show you in a minute where the dog license law is, but everyone in the state, every municipality sells dog licenses, and every dog license should have a $1 charge that goes into a segregated spay neuter fund. And those spay neuter funds can be expended in a couple different ways. At least half has to be expended for people who are receiving certain public benefits. Those benefits are listed. Oh, somebody in the chat. I should have said, I can't see you. Oh. And so if anybody wants to unmute and just speak up, I'm happy to
It was just me, Brad, asking Jen Slattery if we can find out how many dog licenses there actually are in the state. That would be interesting data to get.
Yep.
I
Yeah, I
can
think
get
we're
that. I'm the president of the Clerks Association, so I can send out an email saying how many licenses do you do?
That's
Great.
awesome, Jen. Jen W, I should have said.
So those so expending the funds, you can of course it's your town's residents who are on any of these programs. Half of the funds should be spent on that. The other half of the funds can be spent on any town residents you want, or can be spent to spay and neuter the animals in your municipal pound. And I say municipal, I usually call them shelters. Calling it a municipal pound here because that's what the state law calls it. But you could, within that other 50%, say, I know towns that say, we're just going to offer spay neuter funds to everyone who's 65 and older in our community. And we're just say that's what we're going to do. You could do that, or you could say anybody in town who calls us is going to get some funds. And there's no specific amount that you're required to give any individual person from that fund for an individual spay and neuter. You can decide that yourself. You can decide how you're going to expend those funds. Are you going to give them some sort of voucher? Are you going to have an arrangement with a vet? Do they have to put out the money first and you reimburse them? Are you going to give them the money? So all that is left to you to figure out how that money is actually expended. And one of the things that we're hoping to do, in addition to finding out how many dog licenses are sold, is to try to find out how these programs are being run. Because we do get, as I said, at our spay and neuter clinic, we are already charging a lower cost than a private veterinarian. We lower that cost further with some grant funding. That grant funding is limited, but we still have people who say, well, I still can't quite make it. And it would be helpful for us to just know, well, you're from Warwick, and Warwick has their town spay and neuter program. Here's how it works. I think you would qualify. So you're on one of these programs, or you're just a town resident, but there's no direction from the state about who in the town. Is it the clerks? Is it the animal control officer? Is it somebody else who runs the program, who's the contact person for that program? So, with each town, we're trying to figure out where to direct people to. And instead of having everybody call, we're trying to accumulate a list we could share with other shelters and other folks to say, here's how each town's program works and how you can access it. Because I mean, all the people working for towns that I know want their residents to be able to access the benefits that they offer. We just don't know how to appropriately refer people to all the different towns in the state. So, and we do get people from all over the state at our spay and neuter clinic. We used to see people from Connecticut and Massachusetts as well, but we stopped taking any out of state animals because we were just falling too far behind because the demand was so high. But we'd love to, this part of if anybody wants to contact me about anything, I'm happy to talk to you, but we'd really like to try to continue this conversation to try to figure out where to refer people to if they need help with spay and neuter, and how in each town that should work. And just a couple more. stopped moving there. I assume everybody knows this, but I just thought I would include that, every municipality should have a dog license program, and they renew every year. It does say that the license should be $5, but if you look at this section of the law, you'll see that just about I think every municipality in the state has a different fee, because they all have their own line saying what their fees are. Some municipalities, and you could probably talk to your state representatives about how to do this, can have a differential fee. Some of them have this, so you might charge one fee for an animal that's spayed or neutered and charge a higher fee for animals that are not spayed or neutered, because they may create more expense. It's essentially a way to try to encourage people to get their pets spayed or neutered. Finally, while I had you, I just want to encourage you to, or make sure everyone's aware that one of the more recent changes to state law in our area is that animal control officers are now required to receive training within a year after being hired as an animal control officer. And there's a couple ways to do that, but the National Animal Control Association is one, and I think there's the SPCA has identified another source for that training. But every ACO should receive training within their first 12 months of their hire in order to do their jobs well. And that is what I had. So I wanted to leave some time for questions if there are any. That's my contact information, but I assume Jen could share that. I won't leave that up. I can stop sharing so everybody can see each other. I think you're going to share this recording, but you can also please share my contact information with anyone who wants to get in touch, because I'd love to both get that information about spay and neuter, but also kind of share what we're doing that helps pet owners, one, keep their pets with them, but also sort of stay out of trouble. I think some of the things we are doing could be duplicated by others, or we could support you or partner with others around the state. I also know that there are some municipal shelters that are having trouble just accessing veterinary care, and we're happy to talk to them about those challenges too, because we're trying to figure out how serious some of those challenges are. As we know, some local vet, there used to be the local vet would just stop by and help out. And they are stretched so thin now that that's becoming harder to access. And we've taken some transfers from other shelters when animals have veterinary needs, because we have a full-time vet at our shelter. So we might be able to help in ways that are harder to access. And we're happy to keep doing that. But if there are other ways that we could partner with some of the municipal shelters that are might be struggling to access veterinary care of them, we're happy to hear from them too.
Jen and Renee and Denise and Joanne. It's a lot of information, and I'm thinking, like, as a communications person, like, how do we get the people that need to understand this, to watch this? But it is only 30 minutes. So I'm wondering, especially Jen West, we know the town clerks rule all the towns and cities, right? They're the ones, the gatekeepers, they're the ones that know everything. They're the ones that are there when mayors and town managers and city managers change. So I'm just hopeful that we can get this video recording to the town clerks, and then ask the town clerks if they can send it to the animal control officers and the city and town managers, to just so, I think this is just important information for everyone to have. Does that sound?
Yep. And can we get the slides too, Brad?
Yep, sure. Yep. I'll send them to Jen at Slattery. Yeah.
Yep, Jen and I'll work on getting that out beyond. But Jen West, we could probably try to do another survey that would just collect this information for Potter League and get it out to the clerks. And I think that would probably go a long way to populating your list, Brad, of what your how you can forward information on for each community and what the best process is.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah, please, Renee. Yes.
Okay, so we have the Rhode Island Animal Control Officers Association that we meet once a month. So if you can get that out to, if you get it out to our president, then he can actually make sure it goes out to all the animal control officers. The president of that organization is Art Smith, and he's the Westerly animal control officer.
I think he was on earlier and then probably had to bounce off.
Oh, okay.
I saw
So
his
yeah,
name.
yeah, if he has a copy of it, he can send it out to all of the animal control officers in that group.
Perfect.
And I know a lot, like the money that comes from the licensing, like I can only speak for Pawtucket. I don't know what the other cities do. But what happens is for the program to work, it has to first go to the animal control officer. Well, it would go to me, like the request would go to me. And then I would have to go through the police department to request a meeting through the animal control committee, and then tell them what I wanted to do with those funds. And then once they would approve it, it would have to then be approved by the council. And then we could go forward with the program. We did have a couple of times, we had some opportunities to potentially get some grant funding for spay neuter assistance, but we ended up like stopping the application because we need a contract with a vet in order to like set the prices and everything to go in with that application. And we didn't have anybody that we could use because our vet was bought out by a corporation, which is part of our problem. So we use Parle, we use Potter League, we use Spay Neuter Clinic, we use Gansett, like whoever we can get. We've even gone to Petco to get services because it's whoever is available on the day that we need it. So if we could make some kind of connection and have some kind of contract where the people aren't going to be waiting like 6 months for a spay or something like that, because we use the Spay Neuter Clinic as well, and they're very good about getting us in. But I know some people like not a shelter are waiting and waiting and waiting for a long time. So I'm afraid that if we started that program and had the funding, would we be able to close it out in 12 months? Or are these people are waiting for services and then we'll have money just sitting there and we can't close the program because they're waiting for appointments? Or is it something where we can get the grant money, pay the spay neuter clinic, and then they can just have the people go and like they can tick off the money, you know what I mean? So that our report is like we've given the money out so we can close our report. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I don't know if
I think there's a couple different things that going on. One is that so the spay and neuter fund, the $1 surcharge on every dog license is a state mandate. So the cities and towns should all be setting up those funds. And I'm not sure everybody has, but technically they all should. They should have that. In terms of we're happy to talk to you about if you have a grant opportunity, partnering on that and making sure. So what we've done in some similar cases is just said, we're going to hold a standing appointment like every, whatever the cycle is, like every Wednesday, we're going to have these spots. You know, if your grant is for dogs or cats or whatever, we'll hold a certain number of spots to make sure that those are going to get in. Because you're right, that one of the things we're struggling with right now is private veterinarians have raised the prices so much on spay and neuter surgery that we are seeing higher demand, that people are just being driven to us. So we're seeing longer, and we're not going to get higher than we have a facility that's as big as it is and staff as big as it is. It's probably not going to expand much beyond that. So when demand rises like that, yeah, sometimes depending on the animal, we can get in male cats pretty quickly. It's big female dogs that take the longest to get an appointment because there's a few surgeries we can do. They take longer and we have less housing for them at the clinic. So, but if we knew, you say we've got this much money we got to spend in 12 months and it's going to take this many appointments, we could sort of block off appointments so that the folks who are getting that money. There's something similar in Central Falls. I have to check actually, because that Central Falls was funded by the Rhode Island Foundation. And I don't know if they renewed that grant, but we were doing something, we're trying to do, Central Falls had the money. We were trying to do something similar. Where we said, you know, once a week, we're going to give you 2 or 3 cat appointments. We're just going to hold them for you. And you'll get in on the, because you have a grant we know you need to spend within 12 months. So if you have that opportunity, you could talk to us and we could look at doing something similar.
Who is the best person for Renee to reach out to, Brad, at Potter League?
You can just talk to me and we'll set you up with Todd, and Holly is the manager at the Spay Neuter Clinic.
Any other questions, comments, ideas? All right. Well, Brad and Toonie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for doing
Thank
this.
you, Jen. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure you probably saw my cat's tail going through the through
In
the
my
video.
office cat. My office
Yeah.
cat does too. Yeah.
But so glad to have you here, and we will continue to work to try to get this word out and get these programs you know, funded as best we can, and see what we can do to partner going forward. So
If we have events coming up or more information, can we send it to both Jens? Is that the best idea?
Well, if you
And-
send it
Sure.
to Jen Slattery,
Yeah.
she'll send it out and get it
Okay.
out.
Yep.
And Art seems to be someone that we need on in our database too, to make sure that Art gets it to you, Renee, right? All of you.
Yes.
And I mean, we're happy to attend one of those meetings too, if Art wants to connect.
Okay.
well.
All right. I'll let him know.
Okay.
all right, wonderful.
Thank
Well,
you.
thanks everybody.
you.
We'll be in touch. All right,
Right.
thanks for being
All
here.
right.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.